I am alive today because I responded to a letter. My name is Philomena. I live in South London. I'm a mom, wife, and I survived breast cancer. I was devastated when my breast screening and further tests showed I had breast cancer. After 6 tough months of treatment and surgery, I am back, living life again. Black women, please hear me. We are twice as likely to get a late breast cancer diagnosis, therefore less likely to survive. But we can turn this around. Self-examine your breast, and for those of us aged 50 to 71, attend your breast screening every 3 years. Maybe you ignored your screening letter or you need to reschedule your appointment. Whatever your situation, take action today. Search London Breast Screening online or call 0203 758 2024. Attend your breast screening and take charge of your health.
1 in 12 black men will die from prostate cancer, a shocking fact that we can help change by increasing early diagnosis. My name is Dean. I'm from South London, a DJ and record label owner, but most importantly, a son, brother, uncle, and friend. Prostate cancer is having a devastating impact on our families and our communities. That's why I went to my GP and asked for a PSA blood test to check my risk of prostate cancer. The nurse took blood from my arm, and within a few weeks, I was told everything looks fine. Brothers, please do the same. Our health is the real wealth. Prostate cancer has no symptoms in its early stages, so a PSA blood test can help pick up the disease early. Early diagnosis of cancer means much better survival rates. And I want to see more of our people surviving cancer. What will it take for you to get checked? Black men 45 and over, contact your GP practice today and ask for a PSA blood test.
Did either of you speak to any of your relatives to say you got this thing today? Or is it just a case of it's Tuesday, who are we talking to today?
No, this is actually our first interview as well. So this is kind of nerve-wracking and special for me because my uncle died of cancer last year. No, 3 years ago, sorry. And I was speaking about it on Sunday with my mum because I was telling her,
Okay.
we've got this interview about this. I didn't really know much about my uncle's passing.
Right.
I did want to know more about the subject because I'm a man as well. So in many years' time to come, I'll be plus 45. So I'll think about, my health and, health is wealth. So I really, help other people understand what they can do about themselves and their loved ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to share that I do feel in general, as a conscious Black community, we are becoming more aware of the impact of cancer, in our community as well as individual family. So I feel like it just makes sense to have these kind of conversations, open dialogue with professionals and with people that have gone through the journey themselves. For myself personally, my younger sister I'd say randomly because there was no lead up to it. There was no it doesn't really run in our family, but she did get breast cancer and had to get one of her breasts removed, which was very traumatic. Yeah, it was very traumatic for her, but also for us, just watching her go through that process. And she already deals with mental health issues, so she wasn't actually fully aware of it. She's very heavily medicated, and she suffers with schizophrenia and different things like that. So she's not really fully aware of what she's gone through, but just watching her body change and then all of these things. So yeah, it's a conversation that you don't necessarily bring up until you're faced with it. And I've never, like I was saying to Anton before you guys came on, I've never checked myself for breast cancer. I've just never really, I don't know, it just never really came to mind to do that. So yeah, I'm definitely going to learn a lot from this conversation today. 100%.
Yeah, I think the trouble with a lot of people, not just our community, is we're often reactive rather than proactive. So it almost needs somebody else to get that thing before somebody will go, you know what, maybe I need to go to the doctors or the hospital or whatever it is. And, when you're reactive, it can almost be too late. So if the community can kind of go, you know what, I need to go and just get a checkup, just a little MOT, so they can see that I'm all right, and blood test takes seconds, and before you know it, you're fine. But if you don't do those simple things, then you can get some really bad news at the end of it. So it's yeah. So be proactive.
So like, how did you find out about cancer? Was it via social media or was it personal?
No, no. I think being a black man, you kind of know the things that they say we're more susceptible. So so years ago, a friend of mine said you should go to the doctors, and went to the doctors, and they were like, "What are you doing here? You're fit and healthy. What's wrong?" I'm like, "Well, I think I should be getting a prostate check because I'm over 40." And they were like, "Well, you're kind of wasting our time, because if there's no symptoms, eat more fruit, drink more water." And then a few years, and then last year, I was like, well, I need to get this thing done. And they didn't want to give me a blood test again. And so I insisted on getting a blood test. So they made me travel 3 miles to another clinic rather than my own doctors. Did the blood test. A week later, I got a phone call saying, "Do you want to come in for a chat?" And then they were like, your PSA score, which is the thing that they use to measure, your prostate levels. They were like, it's a little raised. So if you want, we can send you to guys. And then I was on the journey to finding out that I had prostate cancer. So
Oh,
it
wow.
was it was me persisting. And ironically, my GP now calls me because they want advice in how to get more black men to step forward to get the test voluntarily. So, I think there's been a lot of learning over the last couple of years.
Wow. That's an empowering journey that you've gone through then, really, because the fact that you've had to fight for that, um, whereas it seems like the NHS wait for symptoms or they wait for a problem to then deal with the problem rather than saying, okay, well, everybody should get the opportunity to have a screening. And then I don't know, because I feel like women's cancer was definitely pushed more as far as that women getting checked and going for
Yeah.
screenings. So I feel like it was pushed so heavily. Do you feel like men are kind of always kind of not necessarily prioritized when it comes to health?
No, I don't think it's a honestly, I don't think it's an NHS thing because I think with my particular doctors, they just didn't want to spend the money because,
Okay.
whatever you do, there's a cost attached to it. I think most men don't want to confront their own mortality. They
Mm,
don't want that thing of possibly hearing bad news.
yeah,
So if we don't turn up, then we can't get bad news.
that's true.
Which obviously is the wrong thing to do because I'm part of a support group where other black men who've gone through prostate cancer they meet up,
Oh,
and when you hear how some people have found out that they've got prostate cancer, it just breaks your heart. Like one guy played racket sports and his shoulder was hurting him. So he thought, rather than play injured, I'll just go to the doctors. And then they found out he had advanced prostate cancer.
oh wow.
So, yeah. And that was, a guy who was like, I'm fit and healthy. I don't need to go to a doctor's. Right. Where I do think it's something that everybody should do once a year just for a simple, checkup.
Wow. I think we've got Jonathan with us now.
Yeah. Welcome to the Scoop, Jonathan.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So yeah, this is the Scoop Show with Anton Too Bad DJ and
Your girl Nads. Yeah, mate, we're here. Super excited to have amazing guests with us today to touch on a very sensitive and important discussion in our community and health in general. So we have got with us Jonathan and Carlton. Thank you for joining us. If you guys would both
Hello.
like to introduce yourselves to our listeners and tell us a bit more about yourselves, that would be amazing.
Shall I go first?
Yeah.
My name's Carlton. I was a producer at the BBC for 15 years. So I worked on shows like Blouse and Skirt, The Real McCoy. For years, I worked with Lenny Henry, made a show with him about Richard Pryor. Before that, while I was there, I was the person who discovered Emily Sandé. Before I was there, I worked in concert promotion. So I was the person who first brought Erykah Badu to this country.
Oh,
So my career has been in music and television over the last, I don't know, 30 odd years.
that's very impressive. Nice to hear that. So those experiences, they helped you, where you are today. Can you tell us about yourself, Jonathan, before we
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay with these AirPods.
We can hear you great.
Perfect. Yeah, I don't do anything as exciting as introducing stars and artists. I'm a simple NHS doctor, and I grew up in the Caribbean, in Barbados specifically, and I did my training there, and I've specialized in urology with a special interest in prostate cancer. So I work at Guy's as well as Lewisham and Greenwich. I deal with the diagnosis of prostate cancer, but also the radical surgery treatment of it. So I'm happy to speak to both arms of it. And obviously, being in Southeast London, we have quite a diverse population. So that coupled with the experiences that I've had growing up in the Caribbean, I'm really looking forward to the conversation ahead.
Okay, wonderful.
Anton, which way are we looking?
We're looking over there, because we got the laptop over here and everywhere.
Okay.
When you lot see the YouTube video, you're gonna see us looking over there. We should be looking over here. But it's all right.
It's okay.
It's a pilot. So
you're reflecting.
Going off with the first
Lovely.
question, what is a PSA blood test?
A PSA blood test it stands for prostate specific antigen. It's a protein that is expressed in your bloodstream from the prostate gland, and we can measure it by a simple blood test. And if it's above a particular range, depending on what decade of life you're at, then that would trigger your general practitioner to refer you to us, the urologist in the hospital, and then we will interpret whether it's a significant level or not and do some other investigations as well. Okay. Typically, we say you should get a PSA blood test from age 45 if you have a first-degree relative or are Black, and typically age 50 otherwise, and get it checked every year. Okay. And it is a controversial thing. Prostate cancer is a screening. It is controversial.
Why specifically Black and 45 plus?
Because they've found in studies, mostly from America, but we're seeing trends here in the UK, that patients will present at a younger age if they've got a family history, but also if they have Black ethnicity, their presentation of prostate cancer can be more advanced. So we want to pick up patients earlier and offer them treatment that can be probably better in terms of curative intent earlier. So that's why we invite you to get screened from 45.
Okay. So in terms of early detection, that's like a benefit in terms of, this severe condition.
Yeah, because then you don't have to have medications that reflect your whole body being treated, such as chemotherapy. If we find it early and it's just confined to the prostate gland, then surgery, radiotherapy, or just freezing the particular area of the prostate gland become options for you versus if it had spread outside the gland.
Okay. So as far as like once the cancer is detected on someone 45 and above, of course, there's loads of treatments that you've just listed that go into helping the patient. How I just wondered, like, how about the mental health of that patient? Is that also provided as far as like counseling or having like a support system for the emotional journey that they go through?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really important. And sometimes particularly as surgeons, one can be very fixated on treating and doing a very good job for the patient surgically, but the mental side is very important, as you've highlighted. So the Macmillan Cancer Nursing staff, we usually introduce patients to a clinical nurse specialist that becomes their advocate. So they have a contact number that they can call about anything, not only particulars of what the surgery or the radiotherapy discussion was, but how are they feeling? How can they cope? How can they access patient groups, get information on that, and then referral to psychology is always available also. And that's really important. And I'm glad you brought that up early in the discussion.
Yeah.
As soon as I was diagnosed, immediately as I left the room, a nurse stopped me and was like, "We have a group for brothers." So gave me a leaflet, had like a 10-minute chat with me. Because obviously when someone says you have cancer, you're like numb, right? You just can't, you can't even spell the word, let alone process it. So that guy is literally, as soon as I left the room, there was a nurse that was part of the unit who spoke to me and was like, "We have a group that you can talk to." You know, she gave me her card, and it was clear that they were there for me from the word go.
Yeah.
So that kind of mental health aspect, you know, it's not something that they've ignored. It's there immediately.
Yeah, I'm glad you stepped in there, Carlton, because that was kind of like my segue to kind of get into to get into your journey a little bit as well. As far as, and I know we was talking a bit off camera, but if you'd like to share a little bit of what you did say, you know, as far as your journey with that you shared with us, shall I say, excuse me,
Sure.
on how you came about finding out your diagnosis.
Sure. So, because I was a black man over 50, I was really conscious that, you know, we're much more susceptible to certain things than other people. And in the past, I'd gone to my GP and asked for a prostate check, and you know, they were like, "Has there been any differences in your health?" I was like, "No, I feel healthy." And they were like, "Well, eat some fruit and drink more water," and sort of sent me away. And then a few years later, especially as my mum had died the previous summer from COVID, I was really going to make sure that, you know, I wasn't going to die of ignorance. So I decided at the beginning of the year I was going to go and see my GP and demand that I get a prostate check. Again, it was like, well, you know, has there been any signs? And I was like, no, but I really want this. And so they sent me 3 miles away for a blood test, where back in the day they used to be able to do it like there and then.
Yeah.
And then I got a call maybe a week later saying, "Oh, do you want to come in?" And then they you know, they met up with me and I'm like, you know, your PSA score is slightly raised. Right. That's the phrase that a lot of people hear. It's slightly raised. So it's below the level that they want it to be. And I was given the option of, do I want to go to guys to find out if it's something or nothing. But you know, the choice is totally mine.
Okay, so that,
And
sorry, excuse me to cut you. So it's
so
not, so it's not a situation where they tell you, okay, it's slightly raised, and then you go straight into, you know, more tests. It's a matter of they tell you that, and then you take that information and decide whether you want to pursue.
in my case it was, because I think for my age, the safe level is below 4. And I think my score was something like 4.5. So, you know, that's slightly raised. Um, and so I wanted to get to the bottom of why that score was where it was. I'm sure if someone went in and they said your score's 12, you know, it's like, you know, they literally probably put you in a cab to get to a hospital. But with me, because it was just above 4, it's like, do you want to go and explore this? And I was like, yeah. Because a high score or a higher score than your safe level doesn't have to be cancer. It could be that you've just got an enlarged prostate, right? So went to guys, they did a series, started off with some simple tests. Then I had to go back to do an MRI. Then I had to go back again because the MRI was inconclusive. Then I had to go back a third time for a biopsy. And it's only through the biopsy that they can definitely tell you if you have cancer.
Okay. So just leaning a bit more towards Jonathan now with this question. So with hearing Carlton saying that he kind of had to push for his test, the original test to be carried out, is this something that is quite common, or do you feel like you having a professional obviously experience, that is something that it's both sides, like, you know, as far as being a professional, you guys push for it as well as the patient can push for it. Would you, I'd say, think that patients don't come forward enough to say, okay, like, I really want to get this I really want to get these tests done? Do you think people should push for it more themselves?
I think it's multifactorial, and has some hesitancy in some men to present to their GP early, fear of side effects of treatment. And that's understandable. I mean, that happens in my own family. Some people very close to me still won't want to get screened at 60 plus. And in terms of the GPs, there's a hesitancy, or was, and I think it's historical, that they do a PSA test, that they're sending that patient down the road of being overdiagnosed, overtreated, causing a lot of anxiety and distress. You spoke about, you know, psychological support. There is that, you know, if you diagnose a man, say with very low risk disease, or even put them through the process of being diagnosed and it's negative, you still give them a lot of stress around it. So I think that's the difference, is that MRI scan has really changed everything. We can really discern who needs a biopsy versus who can just avoid a biopsy completely. A lot better than we used to do 10 plus years ago. So MRI is definitely a game changer in that respect. And I think it's communicating that message through initiatives like these to GPs, that it is not just a PSA blood test, it is the MRI scan that's the big, you know, discerner. And if there's something that's very suspicious, we go forward to a biopsy. And we can screen out about 60 to 70% men who don't need a biopsy ever based on an MRI. And that's just on data from Lewisham and Greenwich.
Okay, so
can I just say one thing? Let me get the elephant right out of the room, right? A lot of men will not go to the doctors because they're worried that they're going to have a hand up their backside, right?
I was good with
You know,
that.
there's that thing where, like, you know, especially black men, they don't want, you know, it's like, we don't want that, you know, so we'd rather not go if we have to lay down and
So what is
get someone's hand up our back.
is that actually how it's what is that
Yeah,
how
that's
it's
the
done?
location. That's the location
I
of it.
did not know that.
That's why I was saying, you know, breast cancer may be more on TV because of the location of where the prostate is checked. Also
It's
going
easy to examine. Yeah.
yeah, but also as well, some people talk about meringue and guinea hen weed and other herbal remedies. Like, do you think they're helpful, or do you think, you know, they just need to go to a doctor? That's to both of you.
Go to a doctor, go to a doctor, go to a doctor. You know, like, cranberry juice is not going to cure, it's not going to cure prostate cancer. Go to a doctor because, you know, like, you know, the PSA test is so simple. A good doctor, you know, or a good health assistant can do a, you know, can take your blood in 30 seconds, right? You don't have to have anything invasive. And, you know, Jonathan can talk more about that than me, but honestly, if everyone knew that you could just go and get a blood test and it can tell you so much, you know, then I'd hope more people would go.
Yeah.
And I agree. I think it's these herbal remedies should be looked on as complementary and not a replacement for going to your doctor and getting a PSA blood test and getting an assessment. I wouldn't knock it completely down, but there are no large scale studies to show and prove that they have made a difference in large groups of patients internationally, whereas what we do, PSA, blood test, MRI, biopsy, have. So you can see our hesitancy from the medical profession to hang our hat on something that doesn't have data behind it, because we work with, obviously scientific proven ways of doing things. But yeah, I would say it's complementary.
Yeah, I mean that's quite interesting. Because I've kind of and this is it. I don't want to throw too much of my, please do correct me at any point. I'm just inquisitive and I don't know a lot about this field, so I'm coming from just that perspective of I'm open to learning. So forgive me if I'm wrong in my questioning. But for me, I've kind of always linked the I'd say the rise of, because over the years I feel like cancer has risen, or maybe the awareness of knowing so many people that have come about cancer has risen. And is there, I'd like to throw this a little bit more towards Jonathan, can there be a link between the foods that we're eating to the rise of cancer?
Certainly that the Western, quote unquote, Western diet is responsible. We're using a lot more processed fast food. We all know that there's very high quality, a lot of saturated fats, and all these things can cause cancer in any organ of the body. You just got to look at places like Asia, where there's a very low risk of, say, prostate cancer. When the same Asian gentleman moves to the West, to the UK, to the US, suddenly their risk of prostate cancer goes up. So, it is something environmentally. Now, whether that's diet, smoking, lack of exercise, obesity, there's lots of things you could put that on, but certainly diet takes the cake. Now, I'm not going to say that we don't have healthy, fit gentlemen coming through the door with prostate cancer. Of course we do. So there's that caveat as well. But generally, I think taking care of yourself will stand the test of time, because remember, we've got heart disease to think about, we've got diabetes to think about also. And all those things can steer you in one direction or another with regards to other treatments, such as prostate cancer treatment.
Yeah.
Okay, and lastly, what's your final message to our listeners and viewers?
I think being aware of what's out there, the technologies that are out there. PSA blood test is very simple, like Carlton said. An MRI scan is a big kind of change in the pathway, and GPs need to be aware of it, as well as patients. You don't necessarily need a biopsy blindly. You have an MRI and you may not need a biopsy. But more importantly, from a practical side, is talking to each other, men talking to each other, talking with families, learning about your family history. I can tell you probably about 4 out of 10 men will come to me with the diagnosis, and then they only realize from talking to their family that they had a family history after the fact. And that's really, that affects me, because if had they known, they probably would have maybe come a little bit sooner. So I think talking, us as a community need to do these things more. And that's my message.
And I would say regular exercise, eat well. So, everyone knows the difference between eating rubbish and eating well. And absolutely don't be ignorant. We've got so much information at our fingertips. We carry around the internet on our phones, and everyone is susceptible to something. So, just even if you just went to the doctors once a year for a simple checkup, and you get your blood taken there, then at least you're maintaining, and they can tell you how you're doing and what changes you need to make. So just kind of looking after yourself a little bit will serve you in the long run.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
Great.
Thanks for letting us know and our listeners and viewers know of, how we can be aware of prostate and breast cancer and what can be done about it. And we really appreciate you today for expressing yourself and letting us know what is needed to be known.
Yeah, I share that sentiment. I definitely learned a lot, and I know our listeners would appreciate it as well. Thank you for sharing a bit about your journey, Carlton,
Thank
and
you.
Jonathan, your professional standpoint as well is is extremely needed, because very so often we do talks amongst ourselves, which is important, like you said, but also hearing from a professional is also just as valuable in these kind of settings as well, because it's different when you're actually in a doctor's surgery and it's all clinical. But being in these kind of settings, it does make it a little bit easier to digest information. And I have no idea that's how you guys tested for prostate cancer. And I feel a little bit silly, but then at the same time, it's highlighted to me why some men are so hesitant. So yeah, I just want to thank you both for joining us.
So Nadia and Anton, right? I've got a question for you. So the elder men in your families and in your circles, are you going to ask them to go and get a prostate cancer check?
I've had a conversation a few times, and some have said yes, some have said, you know, they gave it a special terminology. I don't want to say where it is in case, you know, they speak somewhere else and then they clock, oh, that's what he's talking about. But yeah, no, I've spoken to a few elder people I know within the Black community, and yeah, they all get themselves checked out, and some have it as well.
Yeah, I haven't personally, but after this discussion, I will definitely talk to my children's dad about making sure that he would, you know, once he gets off that age, or feels he needs to definitely, you know, just to have that dialogue with him. We've never really discussed it openly like that, so most definitely. As far as my dad, who would be in that age group, he actually already works in, he works with mental health patients, but he's already in that kind of environment, so
sure.
That will probably just be like, he knows what to do.
Yeah, because one of the things, I know you're going to go, but one of the things we found in the help group is a lot of men went to go and get their prostate checked because they had a good woman saying, please go and get checked.
I am alive today because I responded to a letter. My name is Philomena. I live in South London. I'm a mom, wife, and I survived breast cancer. I was devastated when my breast screening and further tests showed I had breast cancer. After 6 tough months of treatment and surgery, I am back, living life again. Black women, please hear me. We are twice as likely to get a late breast cancer diagnosis, therefore less likely to survive. But we can turn this around. Self-examine your breast, and for those of us aged 50 to 71, attend your breast screening every 3 years. Maybe you ignored your screening letter, or you need to reschedule your appointment. Whatever your situation, take action today. Search London Breast Screening online or call 0203 758 2024. Attend your breast screening and take charge of your health.
1 in 12 black men will die from prostate cancer, a shocking fact that we can help change by increasing early diagnosis. My name is Dean. I'm from South London, a DJ and record label owner, but most importantly, a son, brother, uncle, and friend. Prostate cancer is having a devastating impact on our families and our communities. That's why I went to my GP and asked for a PSA blood test to check my risk of prostate cancer. The nurse took blood from my arm, and within a few weeks, I was told everything looks fine. Brothers, please do the same. Our health is the real wealth. Prostate cancer has no symptoms in its early stages, so a PSA blood test can help pick up the disease early. Early diagnosis of cancer means much better survival rates. And I want to see more of our people surviving cancer. What will it take for you to get checked? Black men 45 and over, contact your GP practice